Segment two, you've set this one up already. I'd like to sort of talk about two triumphs, or at least pose to you two triumphs and see what you make of them. One is economics, and the notion, my underlying suggestion to you, we'll see what you make of it, is that the difference in politics between 1970 and today suggests we've actually gotten someplace. We've learned a few things. Tax rates may be one. 1970, marginal income tax rates remained almost as high as they were during the Second World War, top rate over 70%. Today, Republicans and Democrats are alike are arguing about whether the top rate should be permitted to rise from 35 to a little under 40%. In 1971, Richard Nixon said, "We're all Keynesians now." Today, the chairman of the Fed, Ben Bernanke, is an avowed disciple of Milton Friedman. Can it be said that within the field of economics, conservatism triumphed?
I think that's right. I mean, if you go to universities, the one department that has moved to the right politically in a perceptible way over the last 40 years has been the economics departments, and the influence of Milton Friedman is very important there, free market economics. It's also the experiences that we've gone through. I mean, 1970 turned out to be sort of the tag end of a period of what I call big unit government that got going in World War II, where, we won World War II in part because big government worked with big business and big labor. This was Franklin Roosevelt's thing. Unlike Woodrow Wilson, he didn't nationalize the war industries. He made deals with the unions. And the idea was that a few people running these big institutions could make decisions and everything would work out better for everybody. And for about a generation, that seemed to work. By 1970, it was flagging. We were headed for a period of stagflation, of inflation with low or no economic growth, which the Reagan economists of the time said couldn't happen, but it did. And basically, we moved away from that towards more market-oriented policies, the Reagan tax cuts being a major advance in public policy, but also on the deregulation front. Mm-hmm. The New Deal in the 1930s basically said we want to freeze prices at their current level. We don't want them to drop. We want to protect current producers, current incumbents in the economic markets. We want to protect truckers and railroads and airlines from and telephone companies from any competition. And around 1970, we started getting movement towards deregulation. Free market economists and Republicans played a good role in that, but so interestingly did Ralph Nader, who campaigned against the Interstate Commerce Commission's railroad freight price settings, said you should actually have competition. Edward Kennedy and Jimmy Carter played significant parts in deregulating airlines and trucking industries. Right. And basically what we did by deregulation of transportation and communication is we squeezed huge amounts of cost out of the system. And that made goods and services available to ordinary people for much lower percentages of their incomes.
To me, this was very striking. Per capita GDP, I'm giving you figures that are fixed in $2005, so the figures are comparable. Per capita GDP, when this book came out, $20,786. Per capita GDP, when this book came out, $41,646 per person. During the period you've been editing the Almanac of American Politics, the wealth that the American economy produces each year has almost doubled. What does that mean for American politics? That we started as the richest nation in the world and we've become much richer.
Well, I think it's over time it has changed us from a class of people who were arguably looking for benefits from the government to people who have become, in effect, property holders, property owners. We've become, once again, a property-owning democracy as we were, a representative democracy as we were in the early 19th century when the generation that followed the founders started extending the vote to everybody because, hey, everybody owned some land.
Everybody was an owner.
Everybody had a stake in society. You could trust people with own property, with a stake in society to avoid ruinous confiscatory legislation. And, the progressives of the early 20th century, the New Dealers, were dealing with a population where most people didn't have significant property, where city dwellers did not own their houses on average, where they did not accumulate substantial financial assets. We had this sort of proletariat. That gives us the New Deal, public policies, and so forth, and the idea that you needed to spread the wealth around, to use Barack Obama's term, to Joe the plumber. I think that we've come to a different place, and that we were coming there in the 1970s, certainly in the 1980s, when we don't see government increasingly as a source to plunder the rest of the economy, to spread the wealth around from Joe the plumber to somebody purportedly more deserving. But instead, and despite the current financial problems, I think the political response to the Obama administration spread the wealth around programs, the very negative response, has indicated that that this is a property owners' republic that doesn't favor redistribution.
In at least that regard, Tocqueville would have recognized America today more readily than he would have recognized America in 1932.
I've made that argument. I mean, in the Almanac of American Politics, 1996, that followed the Republican victory in the 1994 elections, I talked about Alexis de Tocqueville's America. I said we had to look back in history and look beyond Al D'Amato to Al de Tocqueville, and basically that we were once again a property-owning republic, that we were once which people who again had numerous voluntary associations. We are, as American Enterprise Institute President Arthur Brooks said, the most charitable people in the world. We fund and volunteer our time in all sorts of private voluntary associations. Tocqueville saw this in the 1830s. It continues to be true in America today.